Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3 sadly debunks a Dr. McCoy fan theory. Damn it, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a figment of your imagination. If only Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy had made that classic declaration in Strange New Worlds Season 3. But sadly, Season 3 of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds quietly closes the book on one long-standing fan theory that had been simmering since the series' earliest episodes, that Dr. Joseph Mbenga would serve as a direct predecessor, mentor, or even canon bridging link to Dr. Leonard McCoy, the beloved grumpy physician of the original series. Instead, Season 3 makes it unmistakably clear Mbenga and McCoy's paths never crossed aboard the Enterprise, and there is no grand baton passing moment between these two legendary medics. While it's not surprising from a production standpoint, this debunking hits harder emotionally than fans might have expected. The theory had deep roots in Trek lore, character symmetry, and even actor performance. But Season 3 finally drives a hypo spray into the heart of it all, forcing fans to accept that McCoy's emergence on the Enterprise will be its own, unconnected chapter. The origin of the theory, a tale of two doctors. The fan theory began percolating when Strange New Worlds introduced Dr. Joseph Mbenga in its very first episode. Not only was Mbenga already an established figure in Trek canon, he appeared in 2 episodes of the original series as a Starfleet doctor with deep Vulcan medical knowledge, but his presence on Pike's Enterprise opened intriguing possibilities. Could Mbenga remain on board long enough to mentor McCoy? Could Strange New Worlds slowly transition its medical focus to introduce a young Bones, setting the stage for the seamless continuation of the Enterprise's legacy in TOS? These questions were especially poignant because Mbenga, portrayed with gravitas and soulfulness by Babs Olusemokin, has become one of Strange New Worlds' most emotionally grounded characters. His complicated past as a wartime field medic, his devotion to his daughter Rukia, and his often turbulent moral compass made him a compelling figure, one whose journey felt ripe for a passing of the torch moment. For many, it seemed natural that Strange New Worlds would end with Mbenga leaving, McCoy arriving, and a smooth connective tissue forming between the shows. Season 3's telltale clues that break the illusion. Unfortunately, Strange New Worlds Season 3 quietly but definitively dismantles this idea. It starts with Dr. Mbenga himself. Throughout Season 3, he is increasingly depicted as a man growing disillusioned with his position in Starfleet. His arc, especially in episodes like The Wounds That Bind and Cold Mercy, centers around his wartime trauma and inability to truly reintegrate into a world of peace. There's a slow but steady suggestion that Mbenga is nearing the end of his tenure on the Enterprise, not because he's being replaced, but because he may choose to leave of his own volition. A major blow to the theory comes in Episode 6, Quiet Hearts, where Mbenga and Captain Pike have a heart-to-heart. In that moment, Mbenga confides that he's considering stepping away from Starfleet medicine altogether. He speaks not of a protege, not of passing knowledge along to another doctor, but of finding healing for himself. This heavily implies that when McCoy eventually arrives, it won't be as a student, successor, or even someone aware of Mbenga's influence. It'll be a clean slate. Another subtle but unmistakable detail comes in the form of Starfleet's personnel transitions. Episode 8, The Dust of Ages, introduces a new medical officer aboard the USS Farragut, a ship that Kirk once served on. That officer, a brash, chain-smoking, irritable young doctor with a thick Georgian accent and a sharp tongue. He's never directly named, but fans familiar with McCoy's backstory will recognize the clues. The episode ends with that officer transferring to a Starbase medical unit for further training in xenomedicine, an early nod to McCoy's famously circuitous path to the Enterprise. If this man is McCoy, then Season 3 has already placed him far from the orbit of Mbenga's world. What this means for Star Trek canon. By drawing this clearer distinction, Strange New Worlds solidifies what the original series long implied, that McCoy was not a product of Starfleet's internal mentorship pipeline, nor was he a protege of the Enterprise's previous doctors. He was a wild card, a civilian doctor who joined Starfleet late, reluctantly, and with a wholly different philosophical approach to medicine. McCoy's famous skepticism of technology, his reliance on gut instinct, and his cantankerous nature all contrast sharply with M'Benga's calculated, experience-hardened demeanor. In essence, the two doctors represent very different eras of Starfleet medicine. M'Benga is the hardened battlefield physician, a man shaped by the Klingon War, emotionally scarred, yet steadfast in his professionalism. McCoy is the old-school country doctor, filled with fire and stubbornness, a skeptic of military procedure who always puts the patient first, no matter what protocol says. If the fan theory had come to pass, McCoy might have lost some of that unpredictability. Tying him directly to M'Benga would have made him more of a Starfleet product than an outlier. Season 3 seems to preserve that legacy by ensuring their paths don't intersect in any meaningful way. The emotional impact of what could have been. For longtime fans, especially those who love both Strange New Worlds and the original series, this debunking is bittersweet. The image of M'Benga handing over a medical tricorder to a young McCoy, saying something like, "Take care of this ship," would have been the kind of legacy-bridging moment that Strange New Worlds has delivered masterfully in other areas. Think of Uhura's mentorship arcs or Spock's evolving emotional understanding. Moreover, it would have provided a powerful character moment for M'Benga himself. He's carried immense weight over the course of 3 seasons, from euthanizing Klingon prisoners to saving his daughter from terminal illness in a fairy tale pocket universe. Ending his arc with a scene of mentorship could have offered healing for both him and the audience. Instead, his journey looks poised to end in solitude, perhaps on a distant frontier world, treating patients in a quiet clinic far from the corridors of Starfleet. But perhaps that's the point. Why the debunking still honors both characters. Even though the theory is dead, the creative choice actually honors both M'Benga and McCoy in a more authentic way. Each is allowed to remain distinct, a product of different times, traumas, and temperaments. While McCoy remains the soulful, bone-deep humanist doctor who butts heads with Spock and grumbles about transporters, M'Benga is the quiet, haunted man whose knowledge of Vulcan medicine and battlefield experience made him essential in a very different time. There's also a subtle philosophical nod in this separation. Strange New Worlds has consistently shown that legacy isn't always passed down through explicit mentorship. Sometimes it's carried in values, not people. M'Benga's legacy may live on not through McCoy, but through the standards he set, the patients he saved, and the choices he made that reshaped the medical ethics of Starfleet's most famous vessel. What's next for the Enterprise's sickbay? With Season 3 poised to potentially be Dr. M'Benga's swan song, Strange New Worlds now faces the exciting and melancholic task of introducing a new chief medical officer. Whether that's Nurse Christine Chapel, who has had an enormous character glow up in SNW thanks to Jess Bush's dazzling performance, or someone entirely new, the series is preparing to enter its next medical era. One particularly tantalizing thread is the question of whether Chapel herself might be the bridge between M'Benga and McCoy. After all, Chapel worked under M'Benga for years and later serves as McCoy's nurse in TOS. If McCoy ever makes his appearance in Strange New,